Hey, how's it
Hello.
going?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm quite well, and yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for taking time to do this interview.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. I
Oh,
think a couple other band members might be joining shortly. But it also might just be me. So I'm down to get started whenever you are.
okay, cool. That sounds great. Well, awesome. Well, again, thank you very much for taking time to do this. I've gotten the chance to be able to check you guys out since the release of the album, which, it's hard to believe it's already been 20 days since the release of the album. And I'm
Yeah,
just
man.
yeah, it's so great to see everything that has happened with Dawnfall. I mean, the fact that you guys are a part of such a great label, the music videos that you guys have been able to put out, and including today, I saw that you guys just put out a new video just a few hours ago. It's awesome to see all the great stuff that's happening with you guys. With you guys.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate hearing that. Yeah, it's been quite the journey, man. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, the fact that it's been out for 20 days it just feels unreal because it feels like it just came out yesterday. I mean, this album has almost been ready to go almost for like 2 years now. But then, with the pandemic and everything, we just had to time everything out. So it's, uh, you know, made the most sense. And I think Lee, our vocalist, is joining right now, actually.
Greetings. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Oh, awesome. Ben and I were just talking here, talking about how it's been about 20 days since the release of the album and just seeing all the great things that have happened with the album.
Absolutely.
Oh, cool. Well, also, like I was saying, it was just so great to see all these great things happening, and with myself being able to discover you guys from this album, I really appreciate everything that's going on with Dawnfall. Like the more that I listen to it, the more layers that I'm really able to dissect with the album as well, which I really appreciate because on the surface, it seems like there's a lot of chaos that's going on with it, but the more you dissect it, the more you see how everything just flows together and how intricate everything is.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing that. I mean, it's definitely upon first listen, it's I would equate it to drinking from a fire hose. You know what I mean? It's just we have a lot of ideas and a lot of diametrically opposed influences that all of us bring to the table, and we wanted to say all of it. You know what I mean? But so just trying to like condense all of the information musically and message wise into one album was a very difficult task. And so it's nice to hear that you think that it after a couple listens it is comprehensive. You know what I mean? Appreciate hearing that.
Oh yeah, and even from the beginning, it's like I was able to pick up on some things, but I definitely think it's the kind of album that the more that you spend time with it, the more rewarded you'll be with at the end.
That's so cool to hear. That's exactly what we were trying to go for too. And yeah, I mean, like repeat listens. I at least whenever I listen to an album that I really really like, I love discovering new things upon every listen, and with every subsequent listen, like being like, oh wait, no, maybe that's my favorite song. Oh no, that's my favorite song. Just like kind of depending on whatever mood I'm in. And if we can provide that experience to other people, that's super sick too. You know what I mean? That makes my heart smile.
Well, I'm glad to be able to help deliver that for you.
Yeah, cheers,
So,
brother.
yeah. So, with that in mind, I mean, what was it like to be able to start working on this album?
Oh man, I mean, it was quite the process, right? So it started off. Well, Currents was a single that we released when we weren't even a full band yet. And we released that in November of 2018, shortly after our EP Savior, which was the first release in January of that year. Um, and we didn't even know if we wanted to do a full album. We were considering maybe doing like a couple EPs and everything. But it just kind of made sense that the message that was to be delivered sonically and thematically, it required an album's worth of material. So I wrote Azure Rain with Drew after that one, and then shortly thereafter, Sanjay, Lee, and Matt joined the band. And then the writing process just became like a completely collaborative experience. So it was just interesting having this project kind of morph into just a completely different beast throughout the cycle of this album. That, and you throw a pandemic in the middle of it. There was a lot of trials and tribulations with getting all of us together to write. For example, now I live in Nashville, but I lived in Baltimore during the writing and recording of the album. Lee lived in Minneapolis for a portion of it, and then moved to Seattle during a portion of it as well. So just doing time zone math, and everyone's busy with their own schedules too, because Matt and Sanjay also play in Wormhole, and Sanjay's also in Equipoise. So it's just the coordination of it it requires a great deal of effort, but it was well worth it. You know what I mean? So it was challenging, absolutely, because as I said, we all wanted to get across what we're trying to say with this project. But not even just from that, just like from a pure logistics standpoint as well. You know what I mean? Lee, do you have anything to add to that, do you think? Or
I feel like you covered most of it there. There was a lot of time and effort spent from everyone involved in this project, and some different element of this album. There were literal hundreds of hours spent between Ben and I just on writing the lyrics, not even including any of the tracking time or production that followed. Just, I think it was a couple hundred hours that we spent just trying to capture what we wanted to say in a way that made sense and felt right within the songs. And I know that there's a lot of things that changed throughout the course of the album, in between from when they were demos and how they ended up. So everyone's input reshaped things and made some ideas that we had originally maybe not fit apart. And it was cool to see how everything evolved, and I'm really happy with how everything crystallized at the end. I think there was a lot of improvements made throughout the last couple of years.
Like Syzygy is a great example of that one, man. I mean, do you remember what that song sounded like before? Because I don't.
Only barely.
It was like literally it's maybe like 15% the same as it was when we originally had a demo, because it was like a song that Drew had written that we kind of like picked apart, and then like I threw some things in there, and then we like completely changed the ending, and then like reversed some things and then repeated some parts. Like it's a complete Frankenstein monster. But that's just an example of the how much things have changed on this album throughout the process. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting throughout creating an album. You have an idea of what you think it's going to be like in the very beginning, and then the end, kind of compare that B point with what you originally thought it was going to be, and you'll see it's like maybe 30% max what you thought it was even going to sound like. You know what I mean? So very interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works out, isn't it? I mean, especially when there's so many things that are going on. I mean, when you get new members, when you get new ideas, when you get new arrangement ideas, when you get together, when you find out how the songs are going to sound potentially in a live setting, how it's going to sound in a recording. There's so many variables that goes into the songwriting process that even like you were saying, like 15% of that song, it still has like the original sound to it. I'm amazed it even still has 15%, considering how much there can be changed.
Yeah. It's it really is crazy. And the other strange thing is sometimes, like Chiaroscuro, for example, that song is identical to how it was from inception to the end, outside of the vocals, obviously, but like the instrumental part. I mean, there was really nothing that changed from when I just kind of like sat down on Guitar Pro, wrote it out, and then learned it and recorded it. That one didn't budge. So sometimes it works. Sometimes you really, really got to massage the song. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. And again, just like seeing how everything's come together and getting like that full lineup, and of course everything that's happened over the last couple of years to be able to get this together. And of course, that's the beautiful thing of this world, is you never know what's going to happen. So when it's like, all right, we're about to hit the studio, oh wait, worldwide things are happening, I guess we're going to have to delay things for a while. So
yeah, man,
that can also give you some time to be able to work more on the songs, maybe add some arrangement, maybe work on the track listing. That's just like there's so many things that can come of it. So I'm glad to see that there was a lot of positive that came from that wait, because the album might not have come out the same way had it come out without any of the world things that have happened.
Yeah, I completely agree. So particularly the title track Dawnfall, that was written during the pandemic. And I personally at least use a lot of, I guess I draw a lot of music or musical inspiration from whatever emotional color is going on, just with the world and with my own personal, I guess, like emotional blueprint. And I don't know, like if the pandemic had not happened, which would have been nice, obviously, that like I don't know if I would have had the energy that could have gone into that song, well, that Sanjay and I put into that. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that song would have come out the same way. Like there's a very particular part in that song. I can't even think of the timestamp, but it's kind of like the black metal-y part towards the middle. Yeah. That one, like it very specifically, like I'm brought back to being in the basement of the house that I was living in at the time and recording that, and just like, hey, just like that, those like weird blue purple notes of weird, sad feeling stuckness, And I don't think those notes would have happened if the world situation wasn't that. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying it's necessarily good or bad from that subjective standpoint. Obviously it was objectively bad, but that song might not have happened if it weren't for the state of the world at that time. You know what I mean? So.
Oh yeah, and it's all about the negative that can happen and being able to find some kind of positive to be able to come out of it, and the fact that you were able to find some catharsis in writing the title track, and obviously with that being so important, I mean obviously it ended up being the title track of the album, and it was something that was recorded during these times, and obviously the music that was recorded or at least thought of ahead of time as well too, because when I listen to it, it all feels like it was recorded and written in the same writing process. It doesn't feel like there was like years in between, which I think really says a lot to everyone a part of the band to make it feel like everything just felt like so fresh for this recording period.
I appreciate hearing that, legitimately. Yeah, in a way, like we knew what the concept of this album was supposed to be, and we had the skeleton, I had this whiteboard, right, with the potential song titles, like before a single note was written. Like I knew there was going to be a song called Hoarfrost, I knew there was going to be a song called Chiaroscuro, I knew there was going to be a song called Rectilinear Emotion before any single note was written. And it was sort of like, okay, well, this has to be said at this point of the album. What notes will make that happen? What words will make that happen? You know what I mean? Because we knew the story that we had to tell. It was just a matter of filling that in. So maybe I feel like that helps build the consistency. Just like understanding what that foundational message that is trying to be conveyed is. Because I truly do believe that, sonically we deliver messages just like we do with language, right? And that will if you know what you're trying to say, that will translate through sonically. And if as long as that message that you're trying to convey is consistent, then it doesn't matter how long the gaps are in between writing sessions. If you just marry yourself to that message, then it will remain consistent. I think kind of repeated myself a little bit there, but you know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, I know all about that kind of writing process. I mean, sometimes I'll have something that's like years and years ago, I have like an idea. Sometimes it just comes together from being in the same room. Sometimes you just get spur of the moment ideas. I mean, there's so many things that can happen. And when you have the right group of people, and you totally do in this band, I mean, all of you are able to shine on this album in your own different ways, which I truly appreciate as well too. I mean, there's no over the top wankery or anything that's going on here, but all of you have like these great moments.
That's debatable.
I think you're the first person to say that. I appreciate hearing that.
I think it's just because I'm so used to being able to hear music like this that I can tell that it's not just like showing everything you can do on the fretboard, or being able to do the most insane drum fills, or anything like that. You know, it's just like everything on here, it does feel like there's purpose to it, which, you know, it's like it's very easy to just be able to show off your skills, but especially with Dawnfall, it's like everything does have a purpose.
Thanks, man. I mean, yeah, I would agree. I mean, there is many times we would go through the songs with like a fine-tooth comb and just be like, yeah, that part doesn't fit. And it would sound objectively cool, but it just wouldn't mesh. You know what I mean? I mean, and the same thing with vocals too, Lee. I mean, there were times when there was some patterns and or some like I remember like specifically like when we were going through like our Google Doc and like writing the lyrics, there would be times where like Lee, you'd be like hung up on like 2 words and be like, I don't like those 2 words. I'm like,
so many times, yeah.
Yep. And I was like, are you
Where-
sure? And you're like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm like, all right, man. Like, we can figure it
just
out.
like something about the like we had words that made sense in the story down, but then when I went to go like record them, I found that there was a certain combinations of like consonants or vowel shapes that I just didn't like or felt like they interrupted a flow that was happening in the vocals that I wanted to retain. So there was a number of times. I don't think there was probably a single song that avoided this at least once or twice, where I probably spent a week or two obsessing over maybe a grand total of 8 words in a given song.
So in speaking of that, I mean, when you are having those struggles and you want to be able to find the right message or the right lyrics or the right range, whatever the case is, when you're in the vocal booth, I mean, what is that like when you finally find the right pieces and you're able to put them together and things start to connect when you do find those problems and you're able to fix them?
It definitely depends. Sometimes it feels like there'll be just a simple case of like, I like what we're trying to say here, but this word doesn't feel right. So it's just a simple journey to the thesaurus to replace it with something that means effectively the same thing, but fits the flow a little better. And other times it inspired kind of a reanalysis of what I wanted to deliver at vocally, be it if there was like a certain vowel shape or something like, oh, I did an E sound at the end of this last bar in the spot. So I want to mirror that and do an E sound here. And I have to find a word that then fits the vowel shape I want to deliver and still doesn't alter the message. And I think there was also once or twice when we were going through this kind of process where we then reanalyzed the way we were saying things and ended up reshaping a part in a way, in like a pacing manner. So we were still trying to deliver the same idea, but maybe altered a stanza from focusing on perhaps storyline to doing something that's a little bit more metaphorical in scene setting.
Yeah, see that we had to, because we would get very pedantic really quickly, you know. And like sometimes it would get like so esoteric where it's like, dude, let's just like describe some mountains and shit like that it means the same thing, but like, you know, like let's bring it back in a little bit, you know.
Yeah, and it's so easy to be able to fall down that well too. I mean, especially when you find something that isn't working out and you try to find all these different variables to be able to fit the situation and solve the solution. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can go about it. So yeah, I mean, the fact that it can get so pedantic, you know, it's just like I totally understand that. But again, when I listen to the final product, like I would never be able to guess what were the problems, because when I like listen to the vocal delivery on here, it just feels like everything was just meant to be there from the get-go.
That's so awesome to hear, man.
That's very good to hear, because we not only went through this whole vocal analysis before we even addressed the lyrical side of things. Ben and I developed our own like constantly morphing shorthand for how to denote the rhythms of where the vocal like attacks
so
should
bad.
be. So by the time we started actually writing lyrics, we had this like chicken scratch rhythm notation for where the vocal accents should be, and we had like syllable counts for how the lines should flow. So we thought about it rhythmically from a storytelling standpoint, then a vocal delivery standpoint after that. So one of my favorite things I think that came from this writing process, though, that struck me as one of my favorite solutions to when we were unsure of what to do with this particular part in
I know what you're gonna say.
Chiaroscuro, we had this sort of A-B lyric section where we wanted to be able to have the vocal lines work being, so if you were to take each like first, second, third, fourth, like look at the number of the lines, take every odd line and not read the even lines, it tells you something. But then if you read only the even lines for the stanza and don't read the odd lines, that tells you something different. If you read the whole thing together, it creates more imagery as well. And we were really struggling to find something that fit into our rhythm. And while we were going through it, just trying to make sure that everything we had written so far fit within the rhythmic and like syllabic confines that we had assigned ourselves for this section, Ben and I were counting through it and talking through it, and Ben got to this line that we could not resolve. And he just said the words, "something that we have not yet written." And that ended up becoming the final line because we got through the part, I was cackling, and I said, "Ben, that hilariously enough actually works rhythmically. It flows well, and it sort of fit within the meaning of what we were trying to deliver." So sometimes the answers were fought for, and sometimes they kind of fell into our lap in weird ways that just felt too right to not use.
Yep.
And that makes me appreciate it so much more. I mean, you know, obviously with like how you want to describe the lyrics, how the lyrics form together, being able to read the lyrics like you were just talking about, where you look at different parts of the stanza and you're able to appreciate it so much more, and it's able to tell a different story within the story, and there's like so much to be able to peel back on. And like I mentioned before, there's so many layers that's going on, and you don't just say that it's good enough. Like you really want to make sure that you're going to be proud of everything that's going on there, and every part is going to feel right. And that's just a perfect example of that.
Yes, it's wild how it works out, man. You know.
Oh, it's just it's so cool, and I appreciate all the detail that goes into it. And of course, you know, audibly there's so much to love about what's going on with the album, but also visually as well too. I think you guys put out one of the most striking album covers of the
Oh,
year.
thank you.
I love the colors that's going on. I love the representation that's going on with it. I just feel like it's a perfect album cover.
Thanks, man. I mean, yeah. So that massive shout out to Justin Abraham. He is a wizard at his paintings. I mean, it was just unbelievable. So like, this is exactly what I told him when I first called him, and I described the meaning of the album, and I said, "Hey, have you ever played Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo?" And he was like, "Yeah, back in the day." I was like, "Okay, here's literally what I want. I want it to be a Donkey Kong world map, and I want you to be able to identify every single song. Like, so there is an actor for every single song on the record. Like the well on the right hand side is Hoarfrost. The trees is are rectilinear motion. The towers in the back are chiaroscuro. Like, so that's where that level would be. But a big thing that because the name Dawnfall, like the idea is you're suspended. You know, like if you take a picture of a sunset, you wouldn't be sure if it's a sunset or a sunrise because it's not moving. You know, because the concept of rise and fall are relative to each other. And Dawnfall, the TLDR overarching idea of it is you're in a state of uncertainty, and then in the apex of the song Dawnfall, like with the big, happy singing chorus part, that's when the lotus quote unquote blooms, and you realize that there's no such thing as perfection, and that's okay. So the idea was I wanted Justin to be able to capture just that suspended idea of just sunset or sunrise colors. So the left hand side, from what he says, is supposed to be the sunrise. The right hand side is supposed to be sunset. But it's like the album cover is on toroidal boundary conditions. So if you actually take this side and move it over to that side, it's still a complete picture as well. So it's got
infinitely.
Yep. So the idea is that it's all supposed to be uncertain but pretty, just like life.
And a testament to Justin's craft. He took that kind of vague and obtuse like direction, like, hey, here's an idea, we want a Donkey Kong Country map and our album is about everything, okay, go. And, and then he like took the time to actually like sit with the demos that we had at the time and like really ingest them and talk to us about each song and what it meant and figure out how to capture it correctly. And he sent us 800 working copies of it, and really,
and he would like call me. He would call me and be like, hey, so like this part in Shadow Archetype, what's that about? And then I'd be like, oh, it's this. Like, okay, cool. And then he would like, get back to work, because he was like really thinking about like what the album's supposed to be about as he was painting, Like, I think the only reference I gave him was I sent him a picture of Trunk Beach from St. Thomas or St. John Island and Ghost by Devin Townsend. I was like, I like these colors and this idea, just mountain with water.
Two great resources, and to be able to use that from that's so cool. And of course, like, the fact when you said Donkey Kong Country, everything clicked for me. When you were about to describe it. It's like, oh, right there. Like, I totally see what you're going for, and it fits so perfectly as well too. I mean, obviously you're not hitting those territories and it's something completely different, but I know what you're talking about when you're using that as a visual aid.
I'm glad you do.
That's such a great reference point.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad that I don't sound completely insane when I'm saying that. Because I've definitely had a couple people be like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm like, don't worry about it. It's just, it makes sense to us.
If you care about these details, oh boy, do we have them. If you don't worry about it. It's metal, it's fast.
Yep, it's straight up.
Oh, I love that. So, obviously, again, like we've talked about, it's been 20 days since it's been released. You guys are still being able to promote the album with music videos. I see so many great reviews and positive comments for everything throughout social media. It's just great to see the rise of this band through this album, ever since I saw it announced to today, just like looking back and like seeing how people are really enjoying the album as much as I am. And I'm glad to see that, it's just like, obviously with so much time and effort and everything that goes into the trials and tribulations of being in a band, let alone being able to release a full-on album, that you guys are able to look back on it, be able to appreciate how much effort has gone into it. And I can only imagine when things get to pick up more, it's just like, I'm very excited to see what's going to be on the next album, what's going to be happening for live shows, all of these things that'll be happening. It's just like, it's so many great things that are happening right now.
Yeah, thanks. It's equally exciting and scary for me, at least. I don't want to speak for Lee or anyone else, for their emotions, but I mean, it's common, particularly because this has been like the big goal for the past 4 years, is putting this album out. You know what I mean? And now that it's happened, and like another massive goal that we've had was playing UK Tech Fest, and we just did that as well. And I find that when you meet these goals, there is like that section of your body that's like, yeah, we're doing it. This is awesome. But then a little bit that's like kind of like afraid to make that identity level change of setting new goals. You know what I mean? So that's why I've always harped on the idea of process orientation as opposed to goal orientation, where you define your success and happiness based on the fact that you're doing it instead of like meeting these benchmarks. But that enough on that. We're excited. We're excited to, I mean, I've already been demoing out stuff for the next album. I'm hoping that next year, early, we can start recording it. We're definitely excited to start getting out on the road as soon as we can. Can't really say too much about that yet, but it's going to be fun. I'm really, really stoked to hit some states and countries that we haven't played before, or that I haven't even been to. So it's going to be really cool to just be able to deliver this message to people who are willing to hear it and are stoked on it. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's so cool. And I'm glad to see that, obviously with everything that's going on right now and being able to enjoy all of the great things that have been going on, that you're still, going forward too, not just resting on your laurels. You got the creative juices flowing. So you're coming up with new ideas, potential touring, whatever may come from that. all these great things that are going on. And, just like, being able to show off, like, you can be proud of Dawnfall, but the band has longevity to it. So that's why we're still going to keep progressing.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you can't walk through a door. This is a quote from my late grandfather. He said this as soon as I graduated college, and I didn't get it. And I was like upset with him, but he said, when you walk through a door, you don't sit there and say, man, look at that door. That was what a beautiful door. And then just hang out by that door. You keep going, you know what I mean? And it's okay to appreciate that door was awesome and that you got through it, but there's a lot more doors that you have to walk through. It's just about going forward, right?
Oh, totally. And, I think that's such a great positive message to be able to end on too. I love that, just the idea of being able to progress forward, appreciate what you've gone through, but, it's just like, there's still the trek ahead and there's so much more to look forward to. And I know that's what's going to happen here. But of course, this whole interview was being able to look back on something that came out 20 days ago with Dawnfall, being a part of such a great label, being able to form such a fantastic lineup to be able to get this vision going, and just everything that's come together with this band, with this project, being able to define everything that's happened with the music videos, to the artwork, to the music, the lyrics, the content, the thematical means. There's so many things to appreciate and love about this album, the more that you really dissect into it. And I appreciate both of you being able to take this time to be able to talk to me about everything that went into it.
Dude, absolutely, Josh. I mean, and thank you for this very, very kind feedback you've given the album in the process. I mean, it's these kinds of things that motivate us to keep going forward. So thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I truly mean it.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time and for the energy that you've clearly put into ingesting it and the care that you've done that with. It's awesome to be able to hear the feedback and words from people like you who've, put emotional time and energy into looking at what we've created. And yeah, we wouldn't be able to do as big of things without you guys. So
yeah, absolutely.
Nothing but